Welcome to the Knowledge Dialogues 2024. I leave you with Emilia Marmolejo, anthropologist and teacher for the IB Society and Individuals.
Thank you, Victor. And thank you, everyone here. I'm happy to say hi to you today. This afternoon, Friday, we're almost free to go. But before we do, we are going to have some interesting conversations. I see that most of us are actually Spanish native speakers. So I wonder if you could answer in the chat whether you would rather have this discussion in Spanish or English. Okay, we stay with English. Yeah? English. Nice. You like a challenge. Okay, then let's do this. So as Victor said, my name is Emilia Marmolejo. I am an anthropologist. I also did the IB and suffered from theory of knowledge. It is an honor for me to be your moderator today as you discuss the question that unites us on this day. To what extent does considering feelings, thoughts, senti-pensares, contribute to knowledge? Senti-pensares, or translated feeling thoughts, is a concept that immediately takes us out of how most of us in the West think about the world. It encompasses philosophies of the world that were not born in Greece or stem from the Enlightenment, where reason comes before everything else and definitely before feelings. Senti-pensares is a term first used by sociologists and anthropologists to describe these philosophies of native people, especially in this continent, or continents, depending on who you ask. These worldviews, although different, share a common trait, that to think and to feel are not separate, and therefore have no hierarchy. Today, I feel deeply honored to host this discussion table where you, IB students from different schools, cultures, possibly different senti-pensares, will share your perspectives on if and how feelings thoughts contribute to knowledge. Before we start, I want to ask you for your contribution to make this a safe, inclusive, and respectful space. I remind you that this session will last roughly 100 minutes and that each participation is limited to 90 seconds to ensure that everyone gets their shared time to participate, okay? We are fewer today, so maybe we might have the liberty to expand on our ideas longer than 90 seconds, but to start, I do ask you to stay within that time frame. And to begin, the first question that I think could nicely introduce us into this question is, how do we understand senti-pensares? What do we mean by that? Who would like to start? Oh, wait. First, I skipped something very important. I'm so sorry. I didn't present you. So, I believe today we have Irving Jimenez Camacho, Hania Elizabeth Aguilar, and Paulina Rocha Martinez. No, sorry, and Francisco José Luna Rodriguez representing Colegio Arjí. Are you there? Say hi. Okay. We have Paulina Rocha Martinez representing Prepa Uni de Celaya. Yeah. Hi, Paulina. And José Pablo González Uribe representing Colegio Terranova, who I think has a problem maybe with his camera. Okay. Now that I did that, shall we start? How do we understand senti-pensares? Feelings, thoughts linked together. How do we understand that? What do we understand for it? What's your interpretation of this concept? Who's the brave soul? Okay, I see you all smiling. Did you prepare maybe an introduction for this? Does anybody want to start with that? Yes? Okay, I see Hania is saying yes. Would you like to go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Feelings and emotions play a significant role in the acquisition and application of knowledge. They can influence learning, decision making, and the formation of beliefs. They can contribute in different ways. For example, when it comes to learning, emotions such as awe, happiness, anger, sadness, and fear can motivate individuals to engage with new information and experiences, thus promoting learning. But there is a more important aspect that affects everyone, which is the culture. Emotions can be influenced by the culture, and an individual's way of conceptualizing themselves can affect their experience of emotion, indicating the subjective and cultural aspects of emotional knowledge. Um, with this discussed, we can now talk about emotions as a source of knowledge. Emotions are considered a source of knowledge as they guide the way individuals feel and direct the energies they emit, potentially leading to the creation of new ideas and experiences. Strong emotions can sometimes distort perception, reason, and language, leading to biased reasoning and rationalizations. They can also oppose reasoning in responses to various situations, highlighting the complex interplay between reason and emotion.
Thank you, Hania. Does anybody want to give their own introduction or reply to Hania?
I would like to add that the question of relationship between feelings and truth in the acquisition of knowledge is not merely theoretical, but deeply impacts in our daily lives. We will dive into how the consideration of feelings contributes to knowledge, using examples from everyday to illustrate this complex interaction.
Okay, do you think you could give us an example?
For example, in a creative situation, when a musician are doing music, so the musician need to follow their impulse, their feelings, through to contribute, for example, a music piece or a song.
Thank you. Paulina, you wanted to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Well, I wanted to give my own position.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Research and learning process points out that emotions and cognitions are inseparable. This link is established for multiple reasons, among them, because emotions influence the ability to reason, memory, decision making, and the attitude to learn. According to Vizquerra, we learn that we really want to learn. People want to learn what is important to them for their life and for their survival. It has been proven that there are emotions that enhance learning and others that hinder it. The main emotional states that benefit or hinder the learning process are the following, like support. Emotions that support learning are security, enthusiasm, happiness, curiosity, and against learning are fear and anxiety, culpability, and maybe jealousy. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. So all three of you have now given your position. I wonder if Jose Pablo, do you maybe have something to add? No? Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So Paulina gave us this idea that feelings and emotions are inseparable. And I think that actually is really related to the concept that we're working on today, right? Senti-pensares. So, finding inspiration in that which Paulina said, what do you think senti-pensares are? Like, if we could give a definition, what would be your definition of senti-pensares, feelings, thoughts? Okay, I can rephrase.
I
Yeah,
would
is
like
somebody?
to say
Yeah, go ahead.
that Senti-pensares, it's a term that it's the word feel and think. So this means, in my opinion, that if you are thinking something good or you're thinking something bad, but then in the other hand is what you feel. So that's it's the integration with emotions and the human experience to the compression of knowledge. For example, the influence that our perceptions or our culture, that how it affects our decisions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Jose Pablo.
So adding to what he just said, I think sentipensares are inseparable. Like you cannot think, no, you cannot feel without uh, think, and you cannot think without feel.
Thank you, Jose Pablo. Okay, so if we believe that feelings and thoughts aren't inseparable, what implications does that have in the production of knowledge? Go ahead, Hania.
I think that maybe when you have a strong emotion, for example, if there's a situation and I think that I did something bad, then I will feel bad and that will affect the way I act and I think. But if I think that what I did is right, then it will come to a completely different result.
Okay, do you think you could offer an example, maybe?
For example, if I fought with a friend and I believe the action because of the fight started is my fault, then I will have to go and apologize. But if I think that it's not my fault and I did right, then I will not apologize. So the result of my action will either go to our friendship coming back or stop being friends.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Hania, you talked earlier about bias reasoning and how emotions can create a bias when we are reasoning. Do everybody here agree? Are emotions always a bias when we make decisions? Go ahead, Francisco.
I'm agree that Senti-pensares can be separate because it's in all the integration with emotions and thinkings. So if you want to separate your emotions to yourself, you can because there's nothing that you can do for do it. So I'm agree with that.
Do you think you could find an example?
For example, empathy. Every day we interact with people. So if you are empathy, if you are respectful, and if you are transmitting something good to that people, then your thinkings are connect with your emotions.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Jose Pablo.
I'm agree with Francisco, and I think emotions influence how we process information and how we interpret the world. For example, the art and the music move us because it stimulates the emotions and the thinking.
Thank you. So you're both saying that there's benefits from acknowledging that we feel when we think as well. Are there disadvantages in including our emotions when we are making decisions? Go ahead, Hania.
I believe so because, as I said, if you have a strong emotion, then you can just make the decision based on that and not think logical.
Okay, can you or somebody else help us find an example of this in real life? Go ahead, Francisco.
For example, in a political debate, individuals may select perceived evidence that aligns people their emotional attachments to certain ideologies. For example, if you say something in a good position, but the perception of the another person don't feel it like that, then that's where it can be a disadvantage, or that's where it can be like a problem with the emotions.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, Jose Pablo?
I think he's referring about subjectivity, and I'm agree with that feelings and thoughts are subjective and vary from person to person. For example, what seems important to someone cannot be that important to someone else.
Okay. And how does that impact our decision making?
Maybe misunderstandings.
Okay, so maybe to wrap up this introduction, what would you say are the benefits of considering feelings and, yeah, senti-pensares in knowledge? How does knowledge benefit from that?
Well, I mean, for example, feelings won't help you to drive a car. Like, you won't learn to drive a car with your feelings. But for example, if you, well, it's everything about knowledge, like how to push the pedal, or how to move the, I forgot the name, but
Steer the wheel.
the yeah, won't help you to feelings won't help you to drive a car. So you need to you need to have knowledge to do that. So emotions and knowledge won't always be related.
Are there no uses of emotions when you're driving a car? Hania?
Well, answering to your question, I think that the emotions can work as a motivator for the engagement of information. For example, if I really want to learn something, then I will. But if I'm not interested, then I just won't pay enough attention. And to the question you asked to Paulina, I think there are emotions driving a car because you may be scared, you may be relaxed, enjoying music. So there are always emotions.
Okay, thank you, Hania. So now we found that one benefit is motivation. Can we find another one?
I think it depends of what we're talking about because, for example, curiosity for scientifics have been working for a lot of time. So we can improve and know more about a lot of things because this curiosity scientifics have. But for example, we cannot. We this can make difficult to construct. Like these feelings and thoughts can be difficult to construct an objective and universal knowledge.
Okay, what do you mean by that? By the second part you said? Could you expand on that?
like for example, maths that are objective, and that 2 plus 2 everyone knows. So you can, how can I say it? Mm, you cannot create knowledge for everyone because feelings and thoughts are subjective. So everyone cannot seems everything like just in the view of feelings and thoughts. I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
I think so. I think, if I understood correctly, that you mean that some disciplines maybe benefit from emotions more than others. Is that what you said? Okay. I think that could nicely move us to the next part of these discussions about disciplines. Do you all think some disciplines need or have a use for emotions more than others? Other areas of knowledge? And if yes, why? And which ones? Hania, I saw you nodding. Why?
I think, for example, playing a sport, it includes more emotion than doing maths, because maths is something that you already have a formula to, but sports no.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? I didn't quite get.
That, for example, playing sports, when you're playing sports, you include more emotion than when you are doing maths, because maths already have a formula that emotions are not included in.
Okay. Could you name an area of knowledge where emotions are not included? Or anybody else?
Art.
There are no emotions in art, or there are?
No, sorry. There are emotions.
Okay, so for instance, would you say that art needs emotions more than math does?
Yes, of course.
Why?
Because everyone's an artist, so you don't have to know how to. There's no. There's no. There's no. I'm so sorry. I'm nervous. There's no.
Don't worry. If you'd rather answer in Spanish, we can have a Spanglish discussion. That's fine.
Ah, ok. Entonces, no es importante, o sea, no es necesario que tú sepas cómo, o sea, es que las emociones hacen que tú hagas arte, no es necesario saber to have knowledge.
A ver, espera, otra vez. ¿Lo puedes repetir, por favor?
Sí, que no es necesario pues tener conocimiento para dibujar o para pintar o para hacer cualquier tipo de arte, sino ahí influyen más las emociones y lo que tú piensas y sientes en ese momento.
Okay, yeah, I got that. So you're saying that you don't need to reason that much to make art. You depend more on emotions. Okay. Do you all agree? Is there no new use for emotions in math, for example?
I think that that's true because if you want to express yourself just by painting or drawing, then you can do it without knowledge. But it's important, for example, in another subject of art like theater or cinema, then you can express yourself, but you have to have a previous knowledge of how to do it or how to interact in that section.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Javier.
I agree with both of them, but I also think that something he mentioned about knowledge is subjective. I think that's also true, and it affects because, for example, if I'm more interested in math than I am in arts, then I will be more emotional about maths than arts.
Thank you, Hania. That connects with what Jose Pablo, I think, was it? You talked about curiosity in science. Do we need curiosity in math as well?
I think we should define art because uh, if we are talking about feelings, maybe and probably un matemático can feel something like super deep when they are doing maths. So if we're talking about feelings and how artists express their feelings in art, in paintings, or I don't know, why mathematicals cannot express the same with maths.
Any of you want to answer to Jose Pablo, maybe? Okay, something we could, I think, move on from this reflection that Jose Pablo was having is ethics. Okay, do ethics have to do with emotions, and how about ethics in the scientific practice? Is it important to be ethical as scientists?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So you were saying how, you know, a mathematician and an artist, they are both human, they both feel, okay, and so we can assume that they both use their feelings when they are working, okay? And going towards science and maths, that seems to be the areas of knowledge that in this group we think don't use emotions as much. How about when they face an ethical question? Scientists face an ethical question. Is it important for them to use their emotions then? Okay, we'll go with Hania and then Paulina.
I think that yes, because my ethics and who I am as a person will lead to how I will confront the situation, and my emotions obviously will affect too because it's what I'm feeling. If I'm feeling something positive or negative.
Okay, do you think you could offer an example?
For example, is if a scientist is accused of doing something that he didn't, um, maybe he will confront the situation in the right way, giving its own version and everything, or maybe he will just attack the media too.
Okay, Paulina?
Yes, I wanted to give the example of scientists like when they need to experiment with animals. Like I think they in those cases they use their feelings. Well, they think before they do something like that.
Thank you. Do you think using your emotions in that example, for example, is it a bias or is it a benefit? Is it something that makes your job more difficult or something that makes you better at your job? Hania?
Following her example, I think it's either what you choose. If I choose to experiment with animals, then my job will be easier because I'm testing on skin. But if I'm not testing with animals, then I will have to make more investigations about my project to get a result that will not affect people. So it's either going for the easy way or the way that affects people or affects animals in this case. So it's about ethics.
That's very interesting. Does anybody want to add on that? Ask a question, maybe? Yeah, Francisco?
For example, I think that scientists need to be very ethics person because you as science have a lot of knowledge, so then you have to know how to act with by ethics, and then that is like how to contribute to the development of human, and that's why how to improve ourselves and how to be more empathic with people about human thinkings.
Thank you. So maybe we could conclude this part of the discussion, circling back to the question: are there disciplines that use emotions more than others, or benefit from emotions more than others? Anya?
I still think that it's about interest because my interest will make me more passionate and curious about what I'm doing. So if I'm interested in something, I will do more, and if I'm not, then I will not feel as much emotion.
Okay, so it wouldn't matter much if you're a mathematician or an artist or a dancer. It's more about how motivated you are in what you do. Okay, do you all agree? Okay. At the beginning of your speech in this discussion, Hania, you talked about cultures and how our cultural background might have an influence of how we feel. Maybe. Do you think? Yeah. Do you think you can come back to that idea? What was it that you were saying?
I think, well, cultures are very different, and it affects a country. We don't all live here in Mexico the same way they live in the USA because of the culture itself. So it will affect whether you think something is right or wrong, or your way of thinking in general.
Okay, I think we can agree that cultural values differ, but do emotions differ? Are emotions universal, or do they vary from culture to culture? Okay, do you think, yeah, Hania?
Well, they are universal, but I think the opinion you have about something may be altered because of your culture, but it's very personal. It's just every individual thinks differently, but it may be um, affected by the culture.
Do you think there are cultures that have a higher value on emotions than other cultures? Yeah, Jose Pablo?
I think there's, creo que sí, voy a hablar en español porque se me van las ideas en inglés, pero por ejemplo aquí en México hay muchísima más violencia que, por ejemplo, Alemania. Entonces, predomina el miedo porque hay más violencia y en Alemania viven con más tranquilidad.
Ok, entonces tú dirías que en México le damos más valor a las emociones.
Diría que varía dependiendo de la cultura. Si vivimos en una cultura con mucha violencia, predomina el miedo a una cultura con menos violencia, con más seguridad. Y, y no es que le demos más valor a alguna emoción, sino que existe esto por diferentes factores de la misma cultura.
Ok. Yeah, Hania?
I agree with him. Giving another example, as he said, here in Mexico, we were raised with more violence than in other countries. And for example, if you put a person raised in Mexico with a person, let's say from Philadelphia, and maybe a debate or a discussion of something, I think maybe the person from Mexico will be more, will defend their point more than the other, or will fight more in a certain way.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead, Francisco.
I think that emotions are universal, but there are specific emotions that has an impact in a culture. Uh, for example, if you are like in Mexico and then you are very happy, then you are very cheerful, but if you go to China, then you have another tradition, another culture, and the emotions are the same, but with a different meaning.
Okay. I think this allows us to introduce one question that was sent to us by from the public. They asked, how important is it to integrate other cultural perspectives, okay, like the worldview of other cultural perspectives when we're talking about emotions and knowledge? Like Jose Pablo was comparing Mexico with Germany. Could we benefit from, I don't know, looking at other cultures?
So can you repeat?
Yeah, they're asking us, how important is it to integrate, okay, worldviews from other cultural perspectives? If we're talking about emotions, okay, how could we have any benefit from learning how other cultures deal and manage emotions? Okay, maybe we can take a step back. We were saying that different cultures manage emotions differently. Okay, so how we learn about emotions when we're young can influence the way we deal with emotions later, and that's related to our culture. Would you say there is a difference, for example, if we think about love, okay, this emotion, big important emotion in our society? Is there a difference in how we experience love as Mexicans than other people in another country, in another continent? Hania, sorry, sometimes I don't see you, so if I don't give you your word, you just go ahead.
I think we all feel love the same way, obviously, according to if you really feel love or not. But it's not about, we all feel the same, but we act different, and that's the thing. It's not about feeling, it's about actions.
Okay, Paulina?
Yes, I agree with her. Like, for example, we express love in different ways. For example, Koreans, they, well, Mexicans, we hug everyone, like, even if we don't know them, we hug them. And for example, Koreans, just when they are really in love, they hug people. So it's the way they express.
Okay, thank you. So what's the difference in these cultures? What's the difference behind our actions related to the emotions we feel? Why do some of us react in different ways to emotions? Yeah, Jose Pablo.
I think a fundamental part of how do we think and how do we act is uh, this amazing part of your family. How the nucleus of your family is really important in your growing when you're a kid. For example, if your parents separate, you have like a lot of different problems, and I don't know if this is part of why, at least I know in Mexico, a lot of families that have this kind of situation and how they act completely different. So I think it's important to consider the where from where are our emotions and why do we feel what we feel.
Thank you, Jose Pablo. Yeah, Hania?
I think that apart from the way we were raised, is more about the situations that we went through because they changed the perspective of things.
Could you give an example?
Maybe if I was raised like not to touch anyone in the way of hugging, but if I meet someone and I fell in love, then I will feel the need to hug them, and that will make me change the way I was raised for an action that I want to do now.
Okay, so do you think, going back to the question that brought us here, do you think it is important to integrate other ways of interpreting emotions in this case from different cultural perspectives? Yeah, you go ahead, Hania.
I think that sometimes we are selfish and we just stay in the way we think, but maybe we can add more cultures and more ways of thinking to change the perspective we have.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think that if it's important to integrate the integration of emotions, but every culture have its values, its norms, its traditions. So I think that it's important to integrate it, but maybe it can be difficult. But if you are empathy, then you can do it in a easy way.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so I thought we could go back to our concept, Senti-pensares, and maybe go from like, yeah, are feelings and thoughts separate things? Yeah, go ahead, Hania.
I think they are because maybe I feel something, but I know that what I'm feeling is wrong. So my thoughts are not necessarily connected with my emotions, but it is something that will affect anyway. But it's about the how the person managed the situation.
Okay, thank you. Would you say one of them is more important than the other?
I think that is the way you think because that's how you control everything. And maybe if an emotion is really strong, you will not think and you will not control it. So I think that it's the thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I think Jose Pablo, you were going to say something. Okay, so as Hania suggests, reason gives us control, whereas emotion gives. What does emotion give us?
Look at the chair.
I see Marcus has arrived. Hi, Marcus. How are you? Yeah, Marcus, can you hear us? Okay, we'll wait for him.
Yes, I can. Sorry,
Yes,
I'm just
you can.
waited right now.
Yeah, that's fine. Welcome. You arrived while we were dwelling on a question. So, whether emotions and thoughts are different things, and if so, is there one more important than the other?
So, well, I think emotions and thoughts are two separate ideas. So, thoughts, you can have thoughts always, but it's emotions that are tied to thoughts that actually help you remember them and give them more depth than just thoughts. There's a lot of thoughts you can have without emotion. And so, when you look at emotion and thoughts, importance, I feel like thoughts, because of the amount of thoughts that you can have thoughts without emotion, but it's hard to have emotion without the thought. So emotions would, for me personally, emotion or thoughts would be placed higher of importance than emotions.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. Anybody here wants to reply to Marcus?
I think I
Go
think
ahead.
that if you can separate your thoughts and your feelings, then you can have a very strong control of yourself. Because if that means that you're resilient, and then you have to control yourself of any impulse. For example, if you're very angry, then you can separate your emotions and think with clarity, or be more resilient in that aspect.
Okay, thank you, Francisco. Anybody else? I think I saw Ember was around, but I don't see them anymore. Okay, Hania, yeah?
I agree with both of them. I think it's about being equal with thoughts and feelings and not let one of them um, interfere more than the other.
Okay, thank you. But then we do have different perspectives here. One perspective says that thoughts should be more important, and the other one is that we should find some kind of balance between them. Which one do you think is it? Oh, hi, Ember. Yeah, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Welcome. I don't know if you heard what we've been discussing for like this far.
Some parts of it. Um,
Yeah, no, that's fine. So maybe you can integrate as you feel like it. So are we more for a balance between them, or should we all give more emphasis and importance to our thoughts? Okay, is there a risk in giving more importance to thoughts? In any case, do you think, can you imagine a scenario where thoughts, where giving more importance to thoughts can be risky? Like we were talking about, there was a bias of emotions before. Is there a bias in thought? Yeah, Francisco?
I think that it's necessary to have a balance, because you need to have the balance because if you go only for feelings, then you not think clearly. But if you go only with thoughts, then you're not going to be happy. So I think that it's necessary to have a balance.
Thank you, Francisco. Yeah, Hania?
I think I find an example where thoughts should be biased. For example, if I'm a doctor and I cannot let my emotions interfere with what I'm doing because there are rules that we have to follow.
Thank you. Is there a specific example from medicine that you can think of? Maybe not only Hania, anybody else can contribute. Marcus, go ahead.
I'd actually like to contradict that idea that so you do need thoughts, right? And you can set thoughts and emotions aside. But even in the scenario where there's a doctor and you have to follow the rules, you still have emotions that play into what you're going to do. When you have emotion, then that's what can start your adrenaline so that you're able to actually perform under pressure. It's these emotions that regulate balance along with thoughts. So it's not only you have to have a balance within yourself of emotions and thoughts, but they're also regulating themselves within your own body.
Thank you, Marcus. Okay. Anybody have a question for Marcus or a reply? Yeah, Hania?
I think I could give an example. There are some religion where you cannot let any blood be donated to you, even though you're dying because your religion doesn't allow it. So if I'm the doctor, it's either maybe it's a little girl, so it's either saving the little girl and letting my emotions getting in because of that, and as Marcus said, the adrenaline, and saving the little girl or following the rules and be led by my thoughts that I cannot do that because it's a religion.
Okay, thank you for your example. Go ahead, Marcus.
I think in this scenario, we are splitting up thoughts into more logical and emotions into irrational, whereas emotions can still be logical. So, in the scenario you brought up, you can still have emotion that is important to the scenario as well as thoughts. They're not two separate things that work against each other, but can actually work together.
Okay, Marcus, I think I would like to ask you, how do you understand this concept of senti-pensares that we were dealing with?
Can you repeat your question again?
Sure. So at the beginning of this discussion, I asked them all how they understand senti-pensares, and I would be interested in you sharing how do you understand this concept, feeling thoughts as as they are integrated. How do you understand them?
I'm not familiar with the phrase senti-pensares.
Senti-pensares, yeah.
You...
So in the question, I don't know. Okay, and I'm gonna write it in the chat. Senti-pensares, and we translated it as feelings, thoughts together. Yeah, so that comes as one single concept, and it's the question that we have for today. Let me read it for you again. To what extent does considering feelings, thoughts, senti-pensares, contribute to knowledge?
All right. I think I understand it now, but personally, when I think about thoughts and feelings together, that's just how your mind works. It's more of a natural state of mind. It's not something you're always thinking about. You're always feeling emotion constantly, but you're also always feeling or thinking thoughts. Even though you might not consciously be thinking them or feeling them, you're subconsciously taking in information and sometimes relating emotions to those thoughts and the information that you're processing. That's how our brain works. It makes it easier for us to understand certain concepts. If I look outside and see a blue sky, sometimes I would relate the blue sky with an emotion of happy or positive. Without actually knowing that I do that, it's more subconscious. So I feel like this idea of feelings and thoughts together is more of a subconscious state of mind that processes our natural world, and can also be a conscious state of mind when we really look at into meditation or psychology. Then it's something that you can actually bring into yourself for a better understanding of yourself.
Thank you. Anybody here wants to reply to Marcus? Ask him a question, maybe. Yeah, go ahead, Hania.
I agree with him, but I think that in a situation where it's necessary, it's about who we let take the lead, but it is still something natural.
Okay, thank you. So I think we've come back to the idea that feelings and thoughts aren't separated, but in different moments in this discussion, some of you have mentioned the benefits of maybe, stopping and thinking before acting, right? So in a way, trying to separate those emotions, is that better?
Do you think you could expand on your idea a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So during this conversation in different moments, we've come back to the idea that feelings and thoughts are not separated, that they are, integrated. But then we also have argued that separating them can help us in our decision making. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So should we then try to separate our thoughts from our feelings? Hania?
I think it's about taking the time to feel and taking the time to think. For example, if there's a problem and I feel a really strong emotion because of that, then I will take my time to feel it, and then I will think about the solution.
Could you offer an example?
Maybe if I had a problem with a teacher and I feel really angry, maybe I will take a time to control myself, and after that I will think about the situation and I will reply to the teacher.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, Marcus?
I think the best answer for the question that you provided is that it depends. When taking separate both emotion and thoughts and thinking of the world through that lens, it depends on what you're thinking of or what situation you're in. Because when you separate feelings and thoughts, it makes you more logical, but that could also cloud your judgment. Same thing if you're overly emotional, that could cloud your judgment for certain scenarios. So I think the best answer is that it depends.
How do you think we can decide whether we become more logical or whether we follow our feelings more? Yeah, Marcus?
I think when deciding to be more logical or to follow our feelings really depends on how you use your feelings. Because we can feel any way right now, but it depends on what our actions are with those feelings. So you can have both ideas of combining thoughts and feelings and separating thoughts and feelings, but it comes down to the decision that you make. Because if, for example, let's say that you are frustrated, you're mad, you are so upset, but you allow yourself to not act on it. That is an example of being emotional, but not letting it cloud your judgment. It's not saying that it's because you have that logical idea, but it's because you know how to use your emotions for, or use your emotions into what actions you take.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to answer or to reply to Marcos? Francisco, go ahead.
I'm agree with that because then that means that you have a self-control. So that's important in the life, that if you can separate your feelings and thoughts and then you can give a space or a time to them feel and then think, then you will have like ability to act in any situations by the right way.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. I will then answer, like, give you another question. Are there instances where ethical decisions might conflict with purely rational and logical approaches? Are there moments when we have to take ethical decisions? Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just going to repeat the question and then I'll give you the word, Marcus. Are there moments, situations, where we have to take ethical decisions, where taking a purely rational decision and logical can create conflict? Marcus?
I think when we bring it into the perspective of ethics, we're focusing on morality, which is the consideration of others' feelings. This is most exemplified in the sciences, the natural sciences, when you look at ethical standards that science has because of the consideration for others' feelings. We can see this with some human experimentation that may be deemed unethical because of how others perceive these experiments. One of the examples is the Nuremberg Code. This is why we have what would be considered irrational thinking because of emotion, but it actually guides the production of the natural sciences. So now you can have ethics and a rational decision. You can have ethics be a guide for the creation of knowledge and the production of knowledge without it hindering rational decisions.
Thank you, Marcus. Anybody else? Could you maybe, Marcus, illustrate what you said with the example you mentioned? I don't think all of us are necessarily familiar with your example.
Yeah. So my example was the Nuremberg Code. After World War II, and during World War II, there are many cases of human experimentation, horrific experimentation on humans. After the fact, there was a group of scientists who developed a Nuremberg Code. This Nuremberg Code has ethical means and ethical standards for human experimentation. So when you want to have human experimentation, you have to follow ethical guidelines.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to contribute to answering these questions? Hi, Julia. Welcome. Go ahead.
Hi. I would like to agree with Marcus. The Nuremberg codes, or like the ethical experience in reference to the Nuremberg codes, were prior to the Nuremberg codes, scientists would perform unethical experiments to gain knowledge, and they didn't do this based off of emotion, I guess, but it created how do I say? The Nuremberg codes is just a way to like gain knowledge with
we lost
ethical.
you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, you're back. Yeah.
Okay. My connection's weird. I'm sorry. So yeah, I agree with Marcus. The Nuremberg codes was an example of withdrawing feelings in order to gain knowledge, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think somebody else joined.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't see your name. Could you tell me your name?
Ember Bahi.
Yeah, good. You're here.
Okay. Sorry, the connection is kind of funny here. I guess.
Okay, that's fine. Did you want to answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in my perspective of this, to what extent, from the question, to what extent does considering thoughts and feelings contribute to knowledge? All of this kind of ties back into perspective, intuition, and bias and ethics. Tying all of those factors together, it would determine how knowledge would contribute to thoughts and feelings. And there is like a certain limitation to this, because people can interfere with feelings and developing further scientific research, such as like I'm sure some of my classmates have mentioned this about the Nuremberg Code, and how some scientists had totally excluded the ethics part of scientific experiments during the before the 1950s, or around the area of 1950s across the world, because in American schools, we're taught about the Cold War and the effect, and this, I guess, the fear of Russia and the atrocities that were faced upon Americans, and I'm sure across of other worlds have experienced this kind of fear as well from other countries, but Americans were feared of the Russians, and so due to this, they would experiment on their own people or within their agencies to gain these knowledge, to gain new knowledge. So, in considering the ethics part, there's a certain limitation to determining whether if feelings like bring us back, have a setback for us to develop our scientific knowledge, or is it ethical, completely ethical to evaluate like the, I guess, the human nature, because there is a certain point to limit, like an extent to overpopulation, because maybe they would, in a possible situation, there could be a possibility where humans value becomes very limited, and so it would totally exclude bias or ethics and within scientific research, and having research kind of pointless, and I mean, like, the value of humans kind of pointless in life. And I think in the perspective of today's perspective, it's there is some argument that can be displayed there, but that's my main perspective and the bias and ethics part. But for intuition, I believe that, well, there are intergenerational gut feelings that are placed into how we feel, and I guess produce knowledge about the world itself, and like just from overall history, or whatever our genetic code like displaces into how we objectify things. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Amber. Yeah, no, thank you for your contribution. I will just kindly remind you to try and keep it shorter, so everybody can participate. Anybody want to reply to Amber? Maybe ask her a question. Yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
I had a couple of concerns when you brought up overpopulation and you're talking about ethics and bias. It kind of sounded like, since there's going to be overpopulation, that the value of human life diminishes, and that some of these ethical constraints actually fall apart because of overpopulation. But I would just like to bring up the fact that we can combat overpopulation in other ways instead of losing human lives. And that was just something that was kind of concerning to me.
Thank you, Marcos. Amber, is there something you wanted to clarify, maybe?
He does have a point. I understand his point and perspective of that, but I it makes sense overall. But I was just putting it into a certain scenario, and it's a possibility, and maybe something to consider. But most likely, it would not happen.
Okay, thank you. So maybe somebody is feeling brave and wants to maybe conclude this question. So, are there instances where ethical decisions might conflict with purely rational or logical approaches? When we are trying to make logical decisions, can ethics be conflicting with these decisions? Hania.
I think there are situations, and we will all, in certain point of our life, come to that situation, and we know we have to do something where our ethics are in the way. So it's either doing what we know we shouldn't do, or doing it because we feel like we want to. So yeah, there are situations where ethics is interfering.
Thank you, Hania. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. Oh yeah, go ahead, Francisco.
I think that rationally, emotions or sensitivity, it can be considering problem or an issue where you are choosing something when you are between two. For example, if you are between choosing two job offers, then one offer will pay you more or will it's more closely to your goals, but another one is with your passion and values. So there's when the emotion and rationality comes and face through.
Thank you. I think I saw Marcos raise your hand. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna agree with what everyone said. I think one thing that has to come into question is rational decision making. What is rational decision making? For myself, rational decision making is one step closer to your end goal. And for a lot of people, your end goal is to be happy. And so sometimes emotions can be rational decisions depending on what you find rational or not.
Thank you, Marcos. Hania, yeah, go ahead.
I think that maybe I do find something rational, but if I don't stop to think if it will affect people, then it's rational to me, but not to the other people.
Okay. So I think, yeah, Marcos, go ahead.
Just replying to what you said, do you think that your rationality is more important than others' rationality?
Well, here ethics interfere too, because it's what. Okay, well, I will need to defend my ethics, but maybe my ethics are not right for other people, and maybe I am wrong. So it's about how everyone sees the problem.
Thank you, Hania. Is there then a benefit in talking about this in the terms that our question asks us to, in with senti-pensares, feelings, thoughts, as opposed as talking just about emotions and thoughts, like rational and feelings, instead of talking about senti-pensares? Why would we choose to use senti-pensares, or should we not, and just stick to talking about feelings and emotions? Marcus?
I think when we would use it is natural. We use it naturally. We combine feelings and thoughts together. So when we're considering rational decisions, it is already something that we use, not just considering the feelings, but also the thoughts, because you have to have a thought to link that feeling to. So when you look at this idea of thoughts and feelings together, it's something that's already natural and already comes out every time we're making or trying to make the most ethically right or the most rational decision.
Thank you, Marcus. Anybody else? Okay, we have a few minutes left of this discussion, and I would like to benefit from the fact that the students from Navajo Prep joined us to go back to a question that we asked earlier, whether you think that cultural backgrounds influence the emphasis on emotions in knowledge acquisition. Should I rephrase? Yeah, go ahead, Julia.
Yes, if you could rephrase that question, please, and re-emphasize it just a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that. Okay. Do you think that our cultural backgrounds can influence the emphasis that we give to emotions in the production of knowledge? Yeah, Julia?
Yes, I believe cultural background does emphasize emotions in the production of knowledge. For instance, I would like our cultural background gives us a lot of bias in some terms. For instance, in my personal culture, the Navajo culture, we have an emphasis on we are not to be cremated, and that has passed through generations, and so that produces a bias and a knowledge, or that produces a bias within myself, and then it gives other people knowledge or cultural. Oh my god! Yeah, I believe that cultural backgrounds does emphasize emotion in the production of knowledge, just because based off of my culture, and then what I witness in other people's culture, there's different emotions around certain things that other cultures are not agreed upon, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question or something to contribute to answer this question? Marcus, go ahead.
And so I'd like to add on to this idea, but the main point is that cultural background is your identity. It is who you are. And so that itself can have a lot of influence on why you think a certain way or why you would want to think a certain way. When you're put into situations that reflect your cultural background, that can also bring out certain emotions. So that's how it influences emotions, because it is a part of your identity, it is a part of who you are, as well as emotions. So those are the cultural background influences emotions when in the production of knowledge.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Oh yeah, go ahead, Hania.
I don't agree with something he said about the culture being us, basically, because maybe some things that I was taught or some things that my country does, I do not agree with them. So it's about what you go through in life. It could change your perspective of things.
Yeah, Marcus, and then Julia.
So would you say, for what you said, that in your culture there's some things that you don't agree with, but would you also say that because you don't agree with these certain things, that influences your emotion on the production of knowledge. Just because you don't agree with it and don't see it as a part of your identity, that cultural background that you don't identify with is still something that contributes to your emotions.
Yeah, I would say it is something that contributes to that because, as an example, Mexico is known for being a corrupt country. So maybe I feel angry about that, and that anger makes me be in a different position for my country.
Thank you, Hania. I think Julia, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I agreed with Hania. Like, there are definitely some things in my culture that I don't necessarily agree with, but that does bring out emotion, and then therefore, it brings out emotion and therefore produces my knowledge.
Thank you very much. Well, I would like to stay here and discuss this with you all day, but unfortunately our time is up. I want to thank you all. We managed to go through to talk about emotions and thoughts in different contexts, about science, about ethics, and how feelings and thoughts are integrated, and sometimes we can't really separate them, but we can use them to our benefit to make decisions. So sorry, Marcus. Yes, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a final comment as we're finishing up this discussion. I'd like to sincerely apologize from Navajo Preparatory School. When we got the invitation for this knowledge dialogue, we did not account for the time change, and so that's why we're an hour late. And so I'd like to sincerely apologize for not being here earlier and on time for the full discussion. But I appreciate everyone who was here and who was discussing about this question.
Thank you. Thank you for apologizing. There's no need. We're happy to receive you and happy that you were here with us at least for a while, making very valuable contributions. I hope next year we will see you here again, all of you and all of your schools, the schools you represent. So again, I thank you. I thank all of you in this discussion, and I also thank everyone in the public and everyone who participated in other discussions. I believe this event was very thoughtful. Would that be a correct word in English? I'm not sure, but I thank you all, and I wish you a very nice weekend, nice Friday. Go have fun and keep on thinking these interesting thoughts. Okay. Oh, probably next year, Marcus. This is the second edition. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Have a great day.